Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome back to Everything Possible in Dark Souls 1. And here we are in Anor Londo, picking up exactly where we left off, resting comfortably by this nicely kindled bonfire, along with our Sunbro Solaire. But let's take a look at just one thing that has changed. If you notice, I am now level 60, and I put a single point into Endurance. Many of you pointed out that I was mid-rolling in the last episode, and that is because I honestly didn't even realize. So putting a single point into Endurance was enough to give me back my fast roll, and now we're ready to go. Swapping out, of course, the Dark Moon Seance ring for the covetous Gold Serpent ring so we can increase our drop rate. But in the door directly across from the room with the bonfire, we have our first spear-wielding Silver Knight, easily parried with the Painting Guardian sword, and a single riposte with the Bandit knife is enough to do him in. And he was guarding a chest containing 3 sunlight medals. By the way, if you're looking to rank up in the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant, you can pick them up throughout your journey, but more importantly, you will be able to farm them later at a low percentage drop rate from the maggots in Lost Izalith. Another Silver Knight down. Now these Silver Knights can drop their equipment. You can get their shield from any of the Silver Knights, you can get the straight sword from the sword wielders, you can also get the spear from those wielding spears, and you can also get some Dragon Slayer arrows from the archers. And in this room, you notice that this fireplace looks a little bit different than the others, and that is because, as you just saw, that is an illusory wall, so you can attack that or roll through it, because you want to come down here for a whole lot of loot. But the first piece of loot, coming from this chest with the chain sticking straight out, clearly a mimic. So let's go ahead and do him in like we have the others. A good thing to remember is that you can knock them out of poise, so you can effectively stun them and then go for the kill. And this mimic is going to drop for us the Occult Club. So Occult does special damage towards certain enemies, namely Gwyn and his followers such as Ornstein and Gwendolyn, but it can also be downgraded to a +5 Divine Club, so if you're looking for a weapon against the skeletons in the catacombs, you may want to consider Anor Londo first. But in all of these chests, we are going to pick up Havel's equipment. So we have Dragon Tooth, his large club weapon, we have his Great Shield, and in the next two we're going to get his armor. So let me just talk to you a little bit about his armor and his Great Shield. His armor cannot be upgraded. However, it has a poise of 121 with the full set, it weighs 50, so it is a significantly heavy armor set, but it also has excellent defenses both physically and elementally. Now his Great Shield has even more interesting properties. With the Great Shield, yes, it does require 50 strength in order to one-hand it. However, if you do have the strength to wield it, if you try to use the parry or the bash animation, you will instead actually get a 40-second buff that greatly increases your poise. It doesn't seem to actually impact your defenses at all, but your poise does raise considerably, although you won't actually notice it on your character status screen. Likewise, if you actually use it in your right hand and two-hand that shield, you can get the same buff animation at only 34 strength. Going up the stairs yet again, we can see that we do have a mimic here. We could tell because of course the chain, but by now I'm sure you all know that. And taking him out with relative ease, we can get a gold coin. So this would be a higher level version of the copper coin we got from Petrus early on in the run. The only purpose that these coins have is to feed to Frampt, and this gold coin will get you 5,000 souls from him. Another mimic directly opposite, so we'll take care of him likewise. And for our troubles killing this mimic, we'll get more coins, this time 5 silver coins. Each of those coins will net you 3,000 souls when feeding to Frampt. And now investigating some of the doors up top here. This corridor doesn't actually go anywhere, but we can look down on one of the next rooms we'll be entering, containing a bunch of Drake heads along the wall, as well as some Silver Knights. Speaking of Silver Knights, right across the hallway, our next spear-wielding Silver Knight. Easily parried and riposted. But anyway, down a floor below us, in a door that we have not seen yet, we have a Prowling Demon, one that is particularly difficult to get to just due to the small arena. And on this corpse we have a Soul of a Hero. I will be showing you a relatively easy and safe way to deal with that Titanite demon once we get to him. Before we check out either of these doors on the left and right, we do have a Silver Knight Archer to deal with. So we'll go ahead and deftly dodge his arrows. Get the parry with the Painting Guardian Sword, a weapon I'm quickly falling in love with. And unfortunately, no drops from him. You can see this door that is now on our left. This does not open from this side, so we'll have to come at it another way. This door, however, does open, and will lead to the next part of Anor Londo. You can check out some of these paintings, some of which mean absolutely nothing, but we do have at least one painting of Guinevere. And a little bit of an ambush, one that you can pick out, again, if you're observant, because you can actually see his sword sticking through the doorway. And if you have a large enough weapon that does a small area of effect, you can actually attack and kill him through the wall in the room before. Now we're on one of the smaller rooftops in Anor Londo, with a couple of Silver Knights. Fortunately, they are spaced far enough apart that we can attack one at a time, which is beneficial to us because instead of actually going to the other archer just yet, we want to head down this staircase to meet a familiar face. That was my worst Sigmire to date. But anyway, Sigmire of Katarina is here, and he's yet again in a bit of a pickle, because in the next room, there are 3 monsters that he doesn't know how to deal with. These monsters, as you can see, being Silver Knights. And again, as long as you just pay attention to your surroundings, you can see all 3 of them before you venture in. And we're going to go ahead and take them out one at a time, which is easily the safest way to do this. Now you can pull them with arrows, you can pull them with the throwing knives, or if you hug this left wall and slowly advance, you can get the attention of the one on the right. By the way, if you're wondering, hey Blue, will you ever get the timing of that parry down? No, I won't. Because the Silver Knights, when they run at you to do a thrust, they actually change the attack, like you just saw, and then they do an overhand sweep. I, for some reason, even though I can define it and I can describe it to you, I can't actually parry it. At least not yet. But anyway, the 3 monsters are down, and now we can open up this chest they were guarding for a couple of Demon Titanite. We will open up this door. This is the one that was previously not open from the other side. And now we'll go talk to Onion Bro to let him know, hey, the monsters, yeah, I asked him politely to leave.
What's on your mind?
Wait.
Fantastic. Take.
And as a reward, we get the Tiny Beings Ring. Now, the Tiny Beings Ring can be a starting gift if you so desire. I would advise against it, because all it does for you is add 5% of your max HP on. So if you're really struggling for hit points, I suppose you could wear it, but given that you only have 2 ring slots and the increase is so minimal, I would go ahead and just let that sit in your inventory or your bottomless box. This archer took long enough in order to put his bow away, so instead of going for the parry, I think a simple backstab, switch to the Uchi Katana, that'll suffice. So now we will head down these stairs. We'll find ourselves in a brand new area, although an area we actually have looked down on. And this would be the area with all the Drake heads on the wall, with a pair of Silver Knights on the bottom. The one in the far corner will aggro from quite a distance away, so feel confident in just standing up on this balcony and wait for him to come to you. You don't want to try to fight 2 of these spear-wielding Silver Knights at the same time. Unless you do. And in that case, go nuts. For me, I would much rather just focus one at a time so I can get the parry and riposte, and easily dispatch them one at a time. One down, 1 to go. One of whom is actually guarding 2 chests full of armor for us. And with him down, we do have these 2 chests, and each one contains 2 pieces of the Silver Knight armor set. So we have the helm, armor, gauntlets, and leggings. And just a quick interesting tidbit about the knights. So Gwyn originally had only Silver Knight. However, he then split his knights into 2 groups. The Silver Knights remained in Anor Londo to protect the city, whereas the other knights actually followed him in order to link the fire, and they were then subsequently burned and charred, and that's why their armor is now black. And now they are considered disembodied spirits haunting the land of Lordran. I opened this door just to show you where we came out because that is now a bit of a shortcut. Now we're going to head upstairs because in the room across the hall is the Titanite demon that we saw from above. So our plan is we're going to actually run in there, get a hit on the Titanite demon, although you really don't have to. We just want to get his attention, and we're going to draw him closer to the door than he is now. And that was a bit too close for comfort. Go ahead and heal up, which wasn't even necessary at this point, but now that he's actually closer to the door and he's stopped, he will no longer aggro. So from here, you might have already guessed it, but we can actually use our bow and arrow. I'm going to switch to large arrows for more damage, and we can just sit here and take pot shots until he's dead. Now this will take a little while. He does have over 2,000 HP, but through the magic of editing, he is now dead. And this Titanite demon, instead of dropping one demon Titanite, will actually reward you with a pair of them. Very nice. We're going to top off our health, and now we will proceed into the main chamber, or the main hallway of Anor Londo, where we will meet a few familiar yet somewhat different enemies, but there's also some interesting loot to be found if you know where you're looking. Taking a look around, we can see Solair's summon sign across the hall. We see a pair of sentinels, this time they are royal, and we also have a Silver Knight archer across the way. But we are actually going to avoid them for now so we can go get some loot that is hidden somewhat obscurely. If you take a look at these windows, clearly a vandal has done his work here. But thanks to him, we can now hop out very carefully, walk down these steps and turn the corner, see some bat-winged demons in the distance, and then run to the edge and just slowly hop down, and you should bounce into the zone. If not, I'm sorry, because you're going to land right behind a sentinel with really no way out. And here we have the Dragon Slayer Great Bow as well as a single Dragon Slayer arrow. Don't worry, we'll be able to purchase more from a merchant shortly. Now the Dragon Slayer Great Bow can only fire the Dragon Slayer arrows or Goth's Great Arrows that we'll see in the DLC. Plunging attack nearly got this Batwing demon. In all my practice runs it killed him, but oh well, such is life. A wonderful failed roll on my part. Fortunately got the timing down a little bit better that time. And even as they're flying up, as long as you have a reaching weapon, you can take them out. You can even stun them out of their attack once they're mid-flight. So long to that Batwing demon. Using the high ground to get at least one shot on this one. But now, because I like to get up close and personal with my fights, go ahead and stagger him once and finish him off. And for taking these demons out, we can pick up one Titanite chunk, which at this stage in the game may actually be pretty useful, depending on how many of the embers you've collected. If you run over here, we can see this gate. We did not investigate that earlier. However, if you were to run up to it, that door actually does not open from that side, so we had to come here. But now we have access to the giant blacksmith. The giant blacksmith can do a number of things for us. Right off the bat, he can upgrade some of our weapons to lightning. He can accept the crystal ember that we'll pick up later in the Duke's archives. He can also ascend some of your weapons into boss items if you have the requisite boss souls and the necessary item in order to upgrade. Here I am contemplating the Dark Moon Bow. However, for now at least, I'll ultimately decide against it just due to the requirements that I don't yet meet. But he also sells some items that are unique to him. He does have a selection of shards that are very good to have, especially the Twinkling Titanite. He sells the Giant Halberd, the shield, but he sells Moonlight Arrows. He sells the Dragon Slayer Arrows, which you can farm, but you cannot buy elsewhere. And he also sells Lightning Bolts. Both Moonlight Arrows and Lightning Bolts can only be gotten from the Giant Blacksmith. Of course, he also has the Giant Armor, which, please, just leave it in his inventory. We'd all be better off for it. But now, behind him, if you roll through some of these barrels, there is a treasure chest containing the ring of one of the giant blacksmith's friends, Hawkeye Goth, and that would be the Hawk Ring. The Hawk Ring is an excellent ring for you archer type folks because it increases the effective range of your bows and your crossbows, which means that the damage that effectively trails off the further away your enemy is will actually last for a further distance. It also increases the zoom range of both your bows and your binocular. But with that area looted and after having met the giant blacksmith, let's go back to the main chamber, now on the other side. And first, let's head down the stairs and deal with this Silver Knight archer who could be a problem once we try to fight the sentinels if we leave him alive. Get close enough so he puts his bow away and just allow him to come to you. And go ahead and miss that parry because again his thrusting attack turns into a slashing attack and you're still not prepared for it. And then go ahead and land a parry and riposte so you can deal with him without dying. Those are my pro tips. You take them or leave them, but trust me, they come highly recommended. Now there are a pair of Royal Sentinels down on the ground floor, but if we want to make our lives just a little bit easier, we'll go ahead and take one out from range so we're only left with one. And for this demonstration, I climbed up the stairs just a little bit, just enough so that I can actually fire over the railing. And here I am trying to get the aiming and the trajectory right. I'm using large arrows currently just so I can get the aiming down. But now I'll switch to the poison arrows. Fire a couple of these so I can get the poison to stick. And there it is, already stuck. I fired one more than I had to. But now that he's poisoned, I'll switch back to the large arrows. And we'll just go ahead and rain arrows down in him. And he just doesn't seem to mind. Maybe he's just done with his job. Have you ever just had one of those days where, you really just didn't care what everyone thought? You weren't too worried about what the boss was going to say. You showed up just because you had to. Anyway, one Royal Sentinel down. Now these Sentinels can drop their halberd and their shield just like the normals, but they can also drop Titanite chunks. And the message on our screen just said that we could feel the Black Eye Orb quivering. And we'll be investigating the Black Eye Orb momentarily, but first we do want to clear out this other Sentinel. And fortunately, not me being hit, but fortunately we are going to actually see two other moves that these Royal Sentinels can do as opposed to their regular Sentinel counterpart. And that would be attack number 1. I'm sorry I didn't get a good angle of it, but that would be the Wrath of God's Miracle. And if you stay too close to that, not only are you going to be staggered at the very least, most likely you'll be knocked flat on the ground, and it's going to do some significant damage. We're going to go ahead and top off our health, and once we do just a little bit more damage to this Sentinel, he's actually going to have it in him to do the same. As soon as they begin to take a kneel, they are going to start healing themselves, and it is difficult to knock them out of that. But even if you can't actually knock them out of the healing animation, it does give you a great opportunity to get plenty of swings in, and if you have a bleed weapon, you should be able to bleed him pretty easily. Both Sentinels now done. We're going to run over to this lever. This will open the main doors of Anor Londo. So if for whatever reason you had to make the run back here from the other side of Anor Londo, no longer will you have to worry about those Silver Knight archers on the buttresses. Hooray! Now with this floor cleared, we're going to go ahead and equip our Black Eye Orb and find out exactly where this is going to take us. Searching the world of the guilty. We can only think of one guilty person right now, and that would be Knight Lautrec. And sure enough, here we are invading the world of Knight Lautrec, protected by two of his lackeys. And our goal here is to exact revenge on him for what he did to poor Anastasia in Firelink Shrine. Now you can see that each of the enemies has something glowing on their feet, and that is because there used to be a cheese method where you could lure these enemies up the stairs and make them fall, and they would take fall damage. Well, now all three of them have fall control permanently enabled. Even though there's 3 enemies, all we need to do is focus on Lautrec, because once he is dead, we will go ahead and consider this a victory. So once you have him separated, it's very easy to get the parry because his R1 spam is notorious. And then once you get an attack off, get the riposte, go ahead and double back and try to do the same thing. Now for you shield users, he is using a pair of Shotels, so it may not be wise to actually try to block this. But with our current setup, with our Painting Guardian sword and our Bandit's knife fully upgraded for as far as we can right now, It only takes 2 parries in order to take out Knight Lautrec. We get ourselves a souvenir of reprisal, and then very shortly, we will actually go ahead and exit his world and leave these 2 lackeys to mourn. And for killing him, we get the Firekeeper Soul, which is a unique Firekeeper Soul. And we'll actually take a look at the description soon, but this is specifically Anastasia's soul. We also get the Ring of Favor and Protection, and we get 5 humanity. But the Ring of Favor and Protection is a very good ring, and it's one that you can get early on in the game because you will get it if you kill Lautrec before he actually kills Anastasia. But the Ring of Favor and Protection will increase your health, your stamina, and your equipment burden by 20%. The caveat is, if you take it off at any point, it breaks, and it is gone for good. Here we are looking for that Firekeeper Soul, so we can take a look at the description. Soul of the Ash Maiden, Firekeeper of Firelink Shrine. Was the Ash Maiden locked in this dark prison for some transgression, or by her own will? Spooky. Now it is time to summon our Sunbro Knight Solaire, because we do have a boss fight coming up ahead of us. In fact, we have 2. And the reason is, as many of you know, we are about to fight Ornstein and Smo. And Ornstein and Smo is a 2-boss fight that have different outcomes depending on who you kill first and who you kill last. I am going to show you both options so we can discuss the items that you will get or you could get from handling the fight either way. So for our first encounter, we'll be entering into Dream Mode. I did air quotes, and you didn't see them, apparently. But we are going to be going after Ornstein first, and we'll be killing Smo last. But now I'm just waiting on my Sunbro, who apparently lost his way. He's like that little puppy in that book, The Puppy Who Lost His Way. Read by Adam Sandler and Billy Madison. Anyone? No? There he is. Welcome, Solaire. So I've used charcoal pine resin because these 2 bosses do have different weaknesses. Ornstein is weak to fire and Smo is weak to lightning. Now their weaknesses are not huge, however you will get a small boost in damage if you use the corresponding element. Since we're focusing on Ornstein first, I'll use the charcoal pine resin. But later, when it's just me, Solaire, and Smo, then we'll go ahead and switch to a gold pine resin. Solaire can do a great job tanking. He also uses Lightning Spear, which would be more effective on Smo than it is on Ornstein, but guess we won't complain for the help. Knight Solaire just got a wonderful stun on Ornstein. And at this point, what I'm doing is I'm not trying to draw Smo away so I can attack him. I'm simply trying to draw him away so he's not focused on both me and Solaire as we try to take out Ornstein. Smo is not exactly the fastest member of this fight, so getting him away will give us some opportunity to get some hits in. And just like that, Dragon Slayer Ornstein is down. Skipping the cutscene. And here we are, applying the gold pine resin. Even though Smo's hammer is now infused with lightning, he still does have a small lightning weakness. By the way, if you're having a hard time with Ornstein and Smo and you're wondering which one is easier, I would absolutely consider Super Smo, as the community tends to call him, to be the easier of the 2 to fight last. However, accordingly, you do get less loot in doing so. He is doing an absolute number on Solaire right now. Also, bleed weapons are fairly effective against Smo, and he is also somewhat easily staggered, as you can see. Watch his butt slam because that area of effect lightning attack is absolutely massive. And unfortunately, Knight Solaire did not make it. Sad to say, but that's alright. We have him almost down, but you can see that damage that one butt slam took out because I was just too close. Go ahead and heal up. Our gold pine resin has worn off, but that's alright. We can finish this no problem. And even though he does the butt slam, keeping someone close to him is not a terrible idea because you can roll under all of his attacks, and for the butt slam, take a few steps away and roll and you should be fine. But once he has landed from the butt slam, it does give you ample opportunity to get in and at very least get 1 or 2 hits in. As you can see here, just enough for us to actually take him out for good. And for killing Smo last, we get the Soul of Smo, and we also get a Humanity. Now the Soul of Smo, if you consume it, will give you 12,000 souls. If you feed it to Frampt, and I'm not kidding when I say this, he gives you 1 soul. So please don't do that. But if you combine this with a blunt weapon at the Giant Blacksmith, you can also create Smo's Hammer. But now moving on to the next fight, we've already killed Smo. I didn't feel like I had to show you that first part again. And you can I still had the gold pine resin active, so I had to wait till that ran out. But now that it has and I have power within going, I will switch to the charcoal pine resin. I will apparently try to cast power within yet again instead of two-handing my Uchi Katana. And now we can begin the arduous task of taking out Super Ornstein. Again, the harder of the two to fight second, in my opinion. However, having Solaire or any other co-op partner can be a great way in order to split his... could be a great way to split his attacks, giving you the opportunity to circle around and get a few swings in. Now, similar to Smo, staying pretty close is not a terrible idea, because all of his attacks can be rolled through. Except for the butt slam, which you do have to be a certain distance away, or it's still going to hit you. If he does get you, or if he gets any of your co-op partners with that stab attack, do not bother trying to attack him, because he does have hyper armor active, which means you won't actually do any damage. Unfortunately, it looks like our friend Solaire is not going to make it yet again. And with this next butt slam, looks like that will do it for Knight Solaire. Have him in a bit of a loop. He does have a faster recovery than Super Smo when he's doing the butt slam, so if you're gonna run in, you might only get a single attack. Do not get greedy. Certainly not as easy to stagger Ornstein, that is for sure. It can be done, but it takes more hits. I truly thought I dodged that, and if his follow-up had actually connected with me, that would have ended this fight a bit prematurely. Also, I'm going to completely take responsibility for getting hit during that healing animation. I most certainly should have run further away and hidden behind a pillar. Speaking of pillars, even the broken pillars, if you stand behind them, can block his lightning attacks. So definitely use that to your advantage anytime you see necessary. Also, if he is about to do that jumping attack, it's actually a great idea to roll towards him instead of away, or roll at all at the very least, because if you roll towards him, you should be able to get an attack in or two once he lands. But with him finally defeated, we will get the Soul of Ornstein, we'll also get a Humanity, and consuming that soul will give you 12,000 souls. You will get 8,000 if you feed it to Frampt, but if you combine it with a +10 spear or thrusting sword at the Giant's Blacksmith, you can make the Dragon Slayer Spear, complete with a one-hand heavy lightning bolt, which is a very cool attack indeed. But he also drops for us a Leo Ring. You can only get this ring if you defeat Smo first and Ornstein last. And if you're using any sort of spear or thrusting weapon, the Leo Ring is fantastic. The Leo Ring will boost your counter damage by 40%. This works for any thrusting or piercing attacks, including bows when you're shooting an arrow. Now, a counter attack is attacking when you are being hit by an enemy or immediately after. This is not your parry, riposte, or your backstabs. That would be benefited by the Hornet Ring. The Leo Ring is specifically for counterattack. So we rode the elevator up, we went ahead and lit the bonfire, and down this hallway we get the Armor of Favor set. And if it looks at all familiar, that is because this is the armor set belonging to Knight Lautrec. The only way to get this armor set is to allow him to kill Anastasia and later to invade him in Anor Londo, and then his armor set will appear on that corpse. Not a particularly great armor set, however it does only weigh 28.1 weight units, so this would be classified as a medium armor set, and it is a fairly well balanced set of armor. But now we have the lovely Guinevere, or at least an image of her. And if we talk to her and kneel, she will bequeath upon us the Lord Vessel. The Lord Vessel, an item that we've been seeking since we started this game, will allow us to warp to most bonfires, and you can actually warp from any bonfire in the game other than Painted World of Ariamas or the Duke's Archive jail cell bonfire. But now that we've gotten that, we're actually going to go ahead and take out the image of Guinevere. Unfortunately, in doing so, it does prevent us from entering into her covenant, the Princess Guard. And had we joined the Princess Guard, we would have actually obtained the Ring of the Sun Princess. Wearing this ring acts as a portable miracle resonance sign, which means that many of the miracles you may use would actually be boosted by wearing this ring, some both defensive and offensive. But by killing the image of Guinevere, we do prevent ourselves from actually entering that covenant, and it also has changed Anor Londo. You can see that we are now in what's called Dark Anor Londo. We're going to see some of those changes coming up. But first, you'll notice that this elevator looks mighty different to the one that we actually took on our way up. And the reason is, these elevators actually belong to Ornstein and Smo. Ornstein being the skinnier of the two, the one that we rode up, and Smo being somewhat more rotund, the elevator we just rode down. But where the Royal Sentinels once were, we do have a couple of enemies in front of us, and these are the Dark Moon Soldiers. These enemies at one point did respawn indefinitely. Unfortunately, it was patched, so now you can only kill them one time, if you can kill them at all. But similar to how we handled Smo and Ornstein, we are going to try to draw the attention of only one. And if we can get the parry and get our iframes during the riposte, this will make this much easier. So we got the Balder armor set wearing enemy down once. Looks like all we need to do is get him one more time and he will be no more. And sure enough, his health is now depleted. So now we just have to worry about the somewhat more dangerous enemy. But as long as we can get a parry on him, I think we'll be alright. Missed that one. However, anticipating that he had a follow-up, I was able to get the parry ready. We'll get the riposte on him, and now we're going to go ahead and get around back before he gets up so we can actually get that chain backstab going, which is more than enough to take him out. Before the patch was introduced, it actually made them only spawn once. This was one of the preferred spots to actually soul farm, because you could run in here, get a quick 10,000 souls, and rest at the nearby bonfire and rinse and repeat ad infinitum. Although it wasn't nearly as entertaining as having the Force Hunters just run off the edge, at least not in my opinion. Now as we descend these steps, we have one more enemy to contend with, and unfortunately, because we've actually killed Guinevere and we've also killed Gwendolyn, we've actually aggroed Dark Moon Nidus, also known as Lady of the Darkling. Now she would have already been aggroed once we killed Gwendolyn, however, because we've actually entered Dark Anor Londo, now she's actually come to meet us instead of waiting by her bonfire. A bonfire which is now no longer active because she is a fire team. She will use Dark Moon Blade on her weapon, and if you try to just spam R1, she does use a parrying dagger, and she can and will parry riposte you. But with one riposte and one backstab later, we can pick up the Firekeeper Soul, which is just one of the generic Firekeeper Souls, which we can use to upgrade our Estus Flasks. But that's going to do it. That is Anor Londo, so thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave me a comment and let me know what. If I missed something, please leave me that too so I can learn alongside you. and I will catch you next time.